somewhere in the middle of the
Ready? All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Back to order. All right, we're going to kick it off tonight with the pledge. And Miss Eldridge.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Cordell. It's my pleasure to introduce tonight's pledge leader, 8th grader at Willow Springs Middle School, Natalia Martinez. She participates in track, cross country, theater, and choir. She enjoys learning about science and has aspirations to become a famous actress. She embodies our Lovejoy ISD graduate profile by pursuing excellence in all of her academics, her activities, and the way that she spreads optimism and kindness to those around her. Natalia, come on up.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now for the Texas flag.
Honor thee, flag.
I
Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Natalia, thank you so much. That was awesome. All right. Next up is Miss Cordell, and as our presenter for recognitions.
Yes, this is Board Appreciation Month, and we want to celebrate and appreciate our Board of Trustees for the hundreds and hundreds of volunteer hours that they spend leading and supporting our district for the benefit of our students. So this evening, we actually had a dinner where our visual arts team, Bryce McCasland, and our students and our teachers in that program were there with us, and they presented our Board of Trustees with a gift and spoke about their appreciation for their role. And so I, at this time, would like to ask Bryce McCasland to come to the podium and share a little bit about what was shared with the Board of Trustees at that dinner.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully, well, I think this works fine. We were really, really honored to be here to be able to show our appreciation for the board because we believe very deeply in what Lovejoy was founded on, and that is something that we are focused on developing more than just test scores and more than just quantifiable data points. We're invested and really committed to developing people who are passionate and people that are compassionate, people that are willing to take on a challenge, people that are willing to take a stand. And it's through programs like our visual arts and other programs that are here tonight that our students learn to take those things on and become the individuals that are going to be the leaders of tomorrow, which is pretty phenomenal. And so for us to be able to be here and show our appreciation to them was a huge honor because we believe so fully in that. And we feel that their vision and their ability to steer us in the right direction is paramount to everything that we are as an organization. And so we wanted to tell them thank you. And in doing so, we had our students create ribbons and strips, little slices of their life, because our students are not one-dimensional. Our students are involved in so many different things. And not all of those things are even part of their school day. Some of those things are the things that they do when they leave school and they go fishing, or those things that they do with their parents when they go home and cook dinner. And it's these things, those little slices of our life that you might not see or you might not know, that I believe fully is what makes us different. And it's one of the things that makes Lovejoy special is the fact that we are absolutely focused on building people that are well-rounded and people that believe in what they do and people that are willing to give of themselves. So it was an honor. We would like to say thank you to our board for all that you do to guide and for all that you do that goes unseen. because there's a lot that you do that might not be loudly applauded just up front. And so I'm here to tell you thank you so much. You do so much for us. We all appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. It was a great evening celebrating with the kids. The art was awesome, and we enjoyed the fellowship. So it's very beautiful and amazing, and we appreciate it. Grateful. Ms. Koenig, item 6B, introduction of new hires.
Yes, it seems to have been a while since we have done some hiring. So we have, he's behind the scenes down here, Mr. John Korb, if he wants to step out. We have an apple for you. And the apple, of course, is a tradition here in Lovejoy where we know that you are an educator. And as an educator, there's a symbolic symbol, it's an apple. And of course, a pen to write that next chapter in your professional career. So we want to thank you for joining us and appreciate you. So we're going to recognize him. Let me get my.
Thank you.
Oh, it's between the two of us. We're trying to.
Jeez. All right, Mr. Parker, you're up.
We have some students that have been pretty successful in this district here recently, and we'd like to recognize them. So I'm going to start off by allowing Bryce McCaslin to introduce one of his artists, and then also Dr. Fella-Mathy to introduce some of her students as well in fine arts.
So in addition to being here and telling them thank you, I am here to introduce and acknowledge this phenomenal young lady. This is Simi Fidel. And Simi is one of those people that I was talking about that is invested everywhere. And you'll see her not only in the classroom, you'll see her playing an instrument, you'll see her drawing feverishly, you'll see her volunteering. And she's a perfect picture of what it means to be committed to Lovejoy and a Lovejoy person. And we are so excited because Simi was recognized by being asked to Miami as a Young Arts finalist. And what that means, Young Arts is an organization out of New York and Miami that celebrates artists that achieve at the highest level. Artists that go beyond what you would see or think is normal for a high school student. And these are artists that are creating on a professional level. And so what they do is they invite that limited number of students to Miami, and those students get to spend an entire week learning with a fellow visual artist and learning from professional artists. And Simi got back last week, yeah. And we terribly missed her, but it was incredible to see her come home and she wore her bag in tonight, but to see her have this air of confidence that has always been there. But it's that picture sometimes of when you leave the space you're in and you know what you do and you know what you're good at and you see it amongst other people and you see yourself amongst the world that you go, hey, all right. And that's what you were like when you came home. I adore this woman, and she has been a phenomenal lead in our program, and she's one of our leaders in the gallery as well. And we just got news this last week that, and this is part of Young Arts, she is in the running for the nation's highest art award, which is called the Presidential Scholar in the Arts. Last year, we were honored to have one of our students at Lovejoy win that award, and this year, Simi is now in the running for that. So she's one of 60 students that are now finalists for the Presidential Scholar in the Arts. So congratulations, I adore you.
Great job, Sammy.
Bryce, when will she find out?
It's always a fantastic night when we get to come before the board and share not only our national recognitions, but also our state recognitions in the fine arts. Our next two groups of guests who have received state accolades are in our choir and band programs for the TMEA all-state process. So I'm going to invite our choir director, Kelly Martin, to come up and share with us a little bit about Romy Kahana, who has made state in the all-state process.
Good evening, board members. I'm so excited to be here tonight to introduce to you Romy Kahana. She is a junior. She is involved not only in the varsity choir at Lovejoy High School, but also in the speech and debate team. Just a little bit about Romy. She set a goal for herself to be a part of the top outstanding singers in the state of Texas. And in the vocal world, it starts with about 18,000 students. It's a 4-round brutal audition that gets cut down to 450 students at the end. So it's a 2.5% chance of these babies making this choir, which it takes a lot of work. And I'm really, really proud to say that Romy has put in that work. She started this music back in July. She went to camp. She spent 3 days learning, practicing intensively all of the languages, many languages, and all of the difficult vocal passages and rhythm passages. She takes voice lessons so that she gets personal one-on-one practice with it. She has conferred with me. She's conferred with other choir teachers to get every ounce of knowledge that she can get. And then not only does she take it and listen to it, but she applies it to what she does. And she is just a doll. One of my favorite things about Romy, not that she is a very dedicated and hardworking young lady, but my favorite thing about Romy is just her positive outlook on life. You can tell by her pink hair. She's a really fun individual. She always has a smile on her face. She always has something nice to say, and she genuinely cares about other people and is trying to make the world a better place around her. And I'm just super, super proud of you, Romy Kahana.
Congratulations.
And to continue this recognition, we'll invite our Director of Bands, Paul Hoyer, to come up and share a little bit with you about our band students who have advanced to all-state.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here this evening and celebrate these kiddos. As our choir director stated for you, this process starts in the summer. The music gets released. The students start to prepare it. We have sectionals on it. But the kids have to decide, that this is something that they want, and it takes time, and they're in their private lessons and they work with us. And our kids, you progress through the region level, the area level, you have to be at the top of those, and then eventually the all-state level. But these kids have worked really hard, the countless hours of doing this, and then ending. The way the new process works is they have to record their all-state audition. So a couple weeks ago now, right when we came back in January, we had to prepare them to do a live recording. It's a one and done, like you got to do this. It has to be, you're allowed to have 30 seconds in between each thing. And we just set up a little recording studio there in the band hall and got these last little auditions done, and the kids did really well. We had a number qualified this year. One that ended up making down there and made a position, but has another college audition at one of the big schools on the East Coast and is actually going to miss it. But we're lucky enough to have two of our All-Staters with us tonight. Our first one I'd like to recognize is Max Ratliff. Max is a new member of our group this year, and he is a freshman, and that is a very rare thing. He's a wonderful percussionist, but it's a very rare occurrence to make the all-state band as a freshman, much less in percussion. And what we'll tease him about every year is the pressure's on after that. If you can do it, it's like, okay, now are you going to be a four-year all-stater, which is a really special thing. You get recognized as state, but he's done the hardest part, which is make it as a freshman in high school. So this is Max Ratliff. Take a picture in a second. And the next student I'd like to recognize is Lauren Duman. Lauren is a senior flute player in our top group, is a leader, a section leader in our group, and has been amazing. And one of those kids every year, she would be on our list. We always would think, you know, how many All-Stars we're going to have this year? Where are these kids going to finish? You know, and Lauren was always like, she'll probably make it. You know, we expected that, and she had to remind me. So her as a sophomore, she was one chair away, and as a junior, she was one away, and now her senior year, she did it. So we're glad that she gets to go down there with us.
Congrats. Great job, team.
While we are transitioning to our next group, I do want to share, because I don't think we really talked about this yet. Our music programs are in Region 25 for UIL. Region 25 includes all the Plano ISD schools, Allen High School, Wiley, plus some of our neighboring smaller districts. And they say among UIL and in our region that Region 25 is one of the most competitive regions within the state, probably within the top 5. So just for our students to advance out of the region into area competition is a really significant opportunity. So we certainly are very, very proud of our music kiddos and band, choir, and orchestra who have been able to advance in this process. My next group I want to cheer for is our Lovejoy varsity cheer and UIL cheer squad. We hit the mat hard, and those girls just cheered and spirited and band danced and all the things their hearts out. And we are so proud of them for bringing home that silver medal for UIL State Spirit this year. And at this time, I'd like for Shelley Wiggins to come up and tell us a little bit about it.
So first of all, Miss Caban and Miss McCullen and I, we had such an honor coaching these girls. They came in day one, ready to go. They had a mission. They did not want to be third place again, but they wanted to medal, so they did it. They ended up second. For prelims, they were sixth going into finals, and we drew number 1 going out of everybody. I was like, how does this happen? So we talked to the girls. I was like, this could be really good or really bad. So y'all better be ready to go. And they didn't complain once. They never complained at practice. They were there committed. I had 43 girls that chose to be a part of this, and that we were the largest group cheerleading squad that had that many. They were like, you have so many people that want to be a part. So I think that says a lot. This is our 4th year to medal in a row, and we do have one athlete, and I'll introduce her when we get there, that has all 4 medals, which is pretty awesome. So congratulations, girls. We ended up second, and we're right there. We're gonna get that gold next year, we know. All right. So Finley Abernathy, Darby Anderson, Annabelle Clay, Rachel Dobbs, Allison Fleming.
Great job.
Blythe Friels.
Good job.
Catherine Hanna, Sophie Harris, Ava Hempkins. Oh, okay. Morgan Johns. We lost our order. Evelyn Kwan, Alexis Lambert, Mackenzie Lang, Mimi Malhorn, Jordan McGuire, right? Brianna Murphy, Mia Nowak, Yolani Phillips, Lainey Pierce, Brooklyn Pipitone. Here's Ava. There's Ava. Taylor Reiner, Caitlin Rumsey, Brianna Sadal, Carson Slaughter, Addison Smith, Isabel Szymanski.
Hey, good job, bud.
Avery Taylor, Emma Thomas, and Caitlin Warren. So Isabel, raise your hand or step forward. She has earned all 4 medals. She has 2 second and 2 third places. So that's kind of cool. So congratulations, girls.
Great job, ladies. All right, that was amazing. Thank you all for being here. That was great. Our next item tonight is public comments related to agenda items. No comments this evening. All right, if you would, just bow your heads with me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to gather tonight to do the work that you would have us do before us. Pray that you would just help us discern and make good decisions and watch over us this evening. Bless all those we serve. In Christ's name, amen. All right. Item 9 is board notifications. We have the notification items in our packet for new hires and resignations. Do we need to go through new hires, Anna? Okay. All right. Any questions on that? All right. Our consent agenda is item 10. Are there any items on the consent agenda you'd like pulled for review this evening? If not, I'd entertain a motion. So moved that we approve. Ann Smith. Second, Jeff Wood. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 11 is our presentation on the celebration of learning. Dr. Tinsley.
Thank you. We have the pleasure tonight of spotlighting our Lovejoy Child Development Center. We have our administrators and teachers who are going to be sharing some information about programming and the exciting things that are going on the campus as far as, and also some future planning that we have coming forward. I want to introduce Erin Perkins. She's our Director of Elementary Education and Early Childhood. And then Amanda Puckett is our coordinator of the Lovejoy Child Development Center. And then they will introduce their staff members that are here.
Allowing us to come tonight and celebrate the amazing learning that's happening at the Lovejoy Child Development Center. As you know, we serve currently students that are infants through pre-K, and we have really just the honor and privilege to give kiddos their first impression of Lovejoy ISD, and that is something that we do not take lightly. And I think that these ladies here create an amazing environment for these kiddos to come and thrive and be prepared to enter kindergarten when it's time. So I'm going to introduce you to Amanda, and then like Dr. Tinsley said, she'll introduce you to her staff, and then she's going to give you a little insight into some things that happen behind the scenes, and then you're going to get to see a video of a day in the life of an LCDC kiddo. So Amanda Puckett, our Lovejoy Child Development Center coordinator.
I'm just honored to be here tonight, that I just get to share just a little glimpse of what we do back at the back in LCDC. I want to introduce several of our staff members that were able to come here tonight. If y'all could stand up. All right, first I'm going to introduce Amanda Diffenbaugh. She is our twos lead teacher. So she kind of starts us out. We have an infant teacher that she wasn't able to be here tonight, but Amanda with those twos, we love those that twos class, don't we? Yeah, they're very special. We love them a lot. And I appreciate Amanda and all her hard work that she puts into our twos class. And then we have Jordan Tench, and she's one of our fabulous threes teacher. And if you walk into her classroom, you're going to see all sorts of things. You're going to see science, the kids learning, they're playing, they're having centers, they're just doing all sorts of wonderful things. And I'm so thankful that Jordan is part of our program. And then we have Susan Patno. She is one of our pre-K teachers, and she has really taken this year by storm and really jumped on board with kind of our new program for our pre-K, and we're just super glad that you're with us. Thank you, guys. Okay, the second thing I want to highlight is that our support of our Lovejoy ISD board and our administration. We have been able to secure, I know that y'all see when y'all walk into our new entrance, you see our new secure doors, you see our front office, which has been a wonderful new addition that we've been able to add this year, especially from security, from our parents and how they feel when they drop their students off at our LCDC facility. And so we are excited and thankful that we have had that opportunity to have that new secure access. Then our new playground equipment. I don't know if anybody has been back there to see our new playground equipment, but it is phenomenal. It is very age appropriate for the students that we serve at LCDC. And our final piece was our fence that was installed probably a couple months ago, and the students really enjoy playing outside on our new playground. So, and then I also wanted to highlight administration at fun events throughout our school year. So if you look at our two pictures, we did a trick or treat to our staff administration. When I say blow it out of the water, we're talking decorations, I mean the costumes and all the little trick or treating, and we walked all of our little kids down there, and that was such a fun experience. And we could not do that without the support from our central office administration, and we appreciate that. All right, one of our main goals is to ensure that instruction is planned, purposeful, and playful at LCDC. And I'm gonna kind of dive into a little bit of the planned and purposeful, and then we'll take a look at our playful. All right, so planned and purposeful, we have inclusive practices. We're able to have a unique piece at LCDC that we're able to collaborate with special education and general education and offer services for our ECSE students and our general education students. And then we're able to collaborate with those staff members and to really be able to provide a top quality program for them. We also provide support for our multilingual learners. And then with our progress monitoring piece, which is a unique piece that we have in our pre-K program, that we are able to progress monitor our students through our curriculum that we have with a BOY, which is beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year progress monitoring, where we're able to collect data, and then we're able to use that data to then guide our learning for student growth. So that is a unique piece in our pre-K program that's going to set these students up for success as they enter their kindergarten year. And we also communicate the progress with the parents. So that's an important piece, that we're partnering with those parents to make sure that they kind of know where their student is at that current moment, and then what we're doing to enforce their influence and enforce their learning so that they can have that growth and progress. We even do it for our little ones. We even have our progress monitoring for our infants through our 3-year-olds through an MOY, which kind of looks at mid-year kind of benchmarks, developmental milestones, and even social emotional learning, and some even little academic pieces that we're trying to focus on with our little ones. We partner with the curriculum instruction. So our pre-K teachers have been able to participate in vertical teams, which has been a really neat experience for our pre-K program, because we're able to kind of see where they need to go and what they need to be doing in kindergarten, and then implement some of those strategies to help support our elementary grades. What else do we have? And then we have wonderful support from our CNI team and instructional coaches. We've been able to adopt a Hegarty, which is an instructional resource that our teachers have been trained, and there's instructional coaches that have kind of trained our teachers in that new practice that they use also in the elementary schools. All right, now here's the playful part. We're gonna play a video here in just a second, but I wanted to make a little note. When I texted the teachers or emailed them and I said, I want 10 photos of purposeful learning that's playful in the program. And if they didn't have any time to do it, it was what they've done throughout the school year. So this wasn't a staged and planned and over 3 days we took all these pictures. No, this is kind of from the beginning of the year to now. So I wanna highlight this fun, playful part of our preschool program.
John's gonna cue you up just a second.
Okay. You're gonna be wowed and ooh and ah. tugs on your heart, doesn't it? It does me. I've watched it, I don't know how many times, and every time I love them. I love those little kids. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about registration updates for next year. So we had a pre-K informational meeting on January 11th, and we had a wonderful turnout. We had 20 new families that would be new to potentially to our program attend. We advertised for our pre-K meeting, upcoming registration on the Lovejoy ISD social media platforms, and upcoming Connect with Katie. We have our new website, which we're very excited about. So if you can find us, which is kind of streamline the process where families can find us a whole easier than searching through and trying to find where we are. But you can, under campuses, you'll find Lovejoy Child Development Center. You can click on it. It takes you to our website, and all the registration information is on our website, and where it's very streamlined. Registration opened on January 16th for current LCDC families and the Lovejoy ISD staff. And then today was our open registration for our community. And we've had quite a few register just in our first registration day. So that's exciting, the growth and the potential for the program. And here's my contact information. I'm Amanda Puckett, and there's my email and my personal office phone number, and there's a QR code that if you scan that, it'll take you straight to our website.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you for that. Item 12 is our innovative course recommendation, Dr. Tinsley.
Yes, and I'm going to ask Mary Mullen to come up with me to help with this presentation. We are excited to share some information about a proposed course that we're wanting to offer at the high school. Mary has been instrumental leading the development of our academic course guides, and we begin that as early as late September, early October. So we're preparing to roll those out within the next several weeks for our middle school and high school students, and we look at courses, pathways for our students, and this is one that we're super excited that was recently approved. And so I'm going to allow Mary to share more information about the course that we're proposing your approval on.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for having me here this evening. The first thing I would like to do is tie this new innovative course that we are proposing tonight to our strategic 2030 plan. Under the Future Ready strategy 5.1, you'll see that our goal here is to promote and provide world-class college and career readiness programs for our students, specifically under strategy 5.1.2. We want to create more opportunities for our students to participate in programs of studies which lead to certification exams. Here is the board policy that ties back to innovative courses. So part of the policy reads that the school board policy states that districts may offer innovative courses when standards that are in our regular required curriculum don't align to the innovative course at all. Then we are able to propose to our board to bring in a course outside of the required curriculum, and that is EHBJ. Recently, the introduction to unmanned aerial vehicles, also known as drones, has been approved by the state to offer in our region. So it's a regional program of study, a little bit different than a state program, because regions have to have it specifically approved. And this regional program of study is actually under transportation, distribution, and logistics. The name of the course that we would like to add is the Introduction to Unmanned Aerial Vehicles. And there's a short description of what the students would learn in this class. It includes UAV flight navigation, the industry laws and regulations, safety regulations, all about mission planning procedures, environmental factors, and human factors involved in the industry. So it's quite detailed. And here's the career cluster that I refer to. Currently, there are a total of 14 career clusters in CTE. Currently, we offer 7 different career clusters with more than 12 different programs of study. So not only are we asking to add this program of study, we'd also be adding a career cluster. There's the description of the programs of study listed there. And upon completion of this course, plus 2 others, the students would then be able to sit and take the FAA Part 107 Remote Drone Pilot certification to actually fly them. So it's a pretty cool opportunity for our students. Why drones? It's a growing industry. It's cost effective and it provides high quality imagery and data. The drone industry is projected to grow by 62% between now and 2030. And it's already being used across many businesses and industries. I've listed a few there, but I'm sure there's many, many more than what I have listed there. According to the Unmanned Safety Institute, it says that over 100,000 jobs will be created by 2025 associated with drones, starting salary of $85,000, which is pretty good. And then the global unmanned aerial vehicle market has a value. It's valued now in the billions, but by, 2030, they're estimating it's over $100 billion in the marketplace. So what are the opportunities for our students? In addition to, after they finish the course, they would have work-based learning opportunities to work part-time for aviation services and drone companies, even airline companies, for post-secondary opportunities, associate's degree that would apply for airline pilots, co-pilots, flight engineers, and additional occupations would include aerospace engineering and operation technicians and avionic technicians. So we're asking for your consideration and approval for us to offer this course in 2023-24.
Well,
Any questions?
super excited with the proposal for a lot of reasons.
Our teachers are too.
One that you might not think of is the safety aspects of it. As a pilot, one of the fears that we have is an unmanned vehicle at low altitudes, mostly on approach and departure. And they took down an aircraft in, can't remember where it was, about a week ago, but they hit a drone. And it was because, the safety that goes into these guys knowing how to run these things and what their limits are and how to function appropriately. It's a really nice thing. So in addition to all those things, there's a lot of other things that go along with that, and that's one of them. So excited to see it. Also exposes them to all parts of aviation that may or may not open other doors, maybe not on the list. So
I saw as part of the recommendation, it was saying a fiscal impact of only $3,000. How is that possible?
The instructional materials that we are reviewing right now is at a cost of $3,000, and that includes 2 drones. So right now, it's one of our considerations. We are looking at others also.
I think this is great. I'm maybe bring it in the future, but I think you mentioned we have 7 of the career clusters covered now, and there's a total of 12?
There's a total of 14.
14, so just in the future, I'd be curious to know which ones we have covered and which ones we don't. And it
Sure.
sounds like this could be adding one to the
Yes.
list, which is exciting. So,
Yes.
thank you.
So it would be up to 8.
I move we approve.
So move.
This to
The curriculum. Awesome. So move Marvin Bobo. Second, Julie McLaughlin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 13, facility rental fees update. Mr. Parker.
Yes, I wanted to give you guys just an update. I know you drive by any of our campuses throughout the week during the evening hours, you'll see cars in our parking lots because we have a lot of community members who use our facilities, especially the gyms, for their events, mainly basketball practices. And we have identified facility rentals as a revenue stream that serves our community and also serves the school district. So I wanted to give you an update, kind of where we are fiscally on renting these facilities. As you know, in our Lovejoy 2030, part of our financial sustainability subcommittee that was in that group identified fees, donations, and attendance improvements to help offset cost and for us to explore those ways that we can offset some of our financial challenges that we have in our school district. So facility fees and charges to use those facilities was one way that I wanted to update you on how we are progressing through that. If you look back at 2021, 2022, we collected just over $37,000 in facility usage fees. With the amount of demand we have, that's a really, really low number. I would love to give a lot of credit to Natalie Legg. If you've met Natalie, she's our receptionist. She's also, I work with her as my admin assistant. She does a lot of work on our facility usage, writing up invoices, sometimes becoming a collection agency, but she does a lot of work. This year we budgeted for just over $42,000. We budgeted that as revenue into our general operating budget this year. Year to date, we've collected over $86,000. So we've surpassed what we've budgeted, or we've doubled what we've budgeted so far. And that was only through the month of December. So that was through one semester, we doubled what we budgeted for. I would anticipate us being close to the $150,000 mark as far as how much that we generate in revenue. And if you're looking to see kind of where those facility fees come from, the four big ones are, oddly enough, our LCDC cafeteria. We have a church that at the beginning of November began using our cafeteria every Sunday. They outgrew their main campus. They needed a satellite campus to add on to their main campus. They inquired about it. Obviously, we had the space in our cafeteria, and it was perfect for them because they don't have to tear down the chairs every Sunday. We keep them out. They use 2 of our classrooms for Sunday school classes. And as they grow in their congregation, they could potentially need more classrooms. And we do have more classrooms to offer. So it was a good partnership for us and Cornerstone Presbyterian Church. Our high school turf practice fields are, I can't tell you how high demand these fields are. 2 of the ones that have really come on strong lately are 7-on-7 football leagues. Our soccer, there's a couple of soccer groups that use them for tournaments on the weekends. And then we'll have on our baseball and softball fields down at the bottom. Later on in the spring, and especially over the summer, there are some baseball and softball groups that will utilize our fields consistently throughout the summer. That's a huge revenue generator for us. And then, of course, like I'd mentioned earlier, our gyms at all of our campuses, excluding the high school. Coach Harriman frowns upon us using the high school gym, but Hart Elementary, Puster Elementary, Sloan Creek, the Willow Springs gyms, and even the gym here at LCDC are used every night, starting at about 5:30 all the way up until about 9 o'clock. And it is in high demand. And so if somebody cancels their reservations, they won't get it back because we have a waiting list of people who want to use it. So those 4 examples are really great examples of not just the demand, but demand for really good facilities that we have to offer to our community. I wanted to give you a comparables chart to show you kind of where we are in relation to a couple of other districts or a few other districts in our area. What we don't want to do, we want to make sure that our fees are competitive, but we don't want to outprice ourselves to where they go somewhere else, right? And so you can see with most schools, everybody does it a little bit differently. I would say the most common practice is to have two different classifications on facility rentals. The first classification is typically for groups that we are going to host that are made up of our students. If a group is made up of a majority of Lovejoy students, we want to give them a discount because they live in our community, they pay taxes on our facilities, we want to give them a discount on using our facilities. There's a classification 2, which is non-district based, and those fees are a little bit more expensive because they're not our kids. But we do want to make our facilities available to them. I would say for the gyms, our basketball gyms, I would say around 90% of our gyms are used by the first classification, our Lovejoy kids. Our fields at the high school, Coach Ross can probably give you a little bit better percentage, but it's probably closer to 50-50 on some of our outside organizations as opposed to our Lovejoy students. But I chose 4 different facilities: our high school auditorium, middle school gym, middle school stadium, and high school cafeteria, just to give you some comparables on some of the different ones. I'm not going to read through these, but you can see what other schools charge. When I say that it's different on how different school districts charge, Frisco ISD, for instance, they don't do a classification 1 and a classification 2. They do a holiday and a non-holiday price. And so if you're going to do it over the summer, that would be a holiday price per se, and then during the school year is a non-holiday price. Wiley ISD, they don't differentiate at all. They give you they're pretty much the same fees. Melissa, they are the cheapest by far, classification 1 anyways. It's any facility you rent out there is $10 an hour. And so they're just making it extremely cheap for their local groups. So I think you've got a handout. If you didn't, I'll provide one of those to you of all of our facilities and what the cost is for both classification 1, classification 2. After we did this review, the only one that I would like to make a change to is our Willow Springs Stadium. It was really cheap, as you can see on the chart up on the screen. It started out as $25 an hour. That's really cheap to use our middle school stadium with the turf. We always charge an additional $10 per hour if they use lights, so that would add, but $25 an hour is pretty cheap to use our stadium. So we'll bump that price up a little bit. Everything else that we had priced originally, it was pretty competitive and it fell in line with some of the other districts, so we're going to keep most of those the same. The only one changing really is going to be our middle school stadium. So again, we get calls every day. We get facility requests every day, usually multiple requests per day to use our facilities. And if they're available, kind of our process is if Ann Smith wanted to go and rent a gym, she would go, and it's at Willow Springs, she would go to Willow Springs and say, do you have a gym available on this date? They would go and check their calendar, and they say, yes, Ann, we have it on this day available. She would fill out the request, turn it into them. They would send it over to myself and Natalie Legg, and we would invoice her the amount to pay. We've also started to where now you're paying up front instead of using the facility and then paying on the back end, which was kind of a practice in the past. We also found that once people use our facilities, they're not really interested in paying. And then that's when we turn into a collection agency, and it's not fun being a collection agency. So we've changed some of our practices and structures on how we collect money too, or how people pay, which has increased the amount of revenue that we get. Any questions on that?
Good news.
Thank you. All right. Item 14 is for presentation on professional to student engagement portal.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to ask Carrie Sharp to come up because she and Lisa and Camille are really the masterminds behind this wonderful portal. So Carrie, you want to come up and share?
evening. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to share about this portal with you guys and how it's going to be amazing to connect our Lovejoy community with our students. So I do want to take time to recognize two ladies in the room, Camille and Lisa. Thank you so much. We've all been on this committee from the beginning. And without the work that these two ladies did behind the scenes and up front, not only the work that they did on the strategic Lovejoy 2030 planning committee, but also the research and design that they put into this portal. So thank you ladies for partnering with me. And I just want to recognize what a pivotal role they had. So one of the outcomes that was identified Lovejoy 2030 was just the need for our students to connect with the Lovejoy community and really continue to develop those future ready skills. So through the Lovejoy 2030, you guys identified some very pivotal strategies and some things that we wanted to make sure that our students had the opportunity to experience. And one of those was a district volunteer portal that would allow us a chance to match the professionals and industry leaders within our community to our students. And not only is this portal going to match that strategy, through the work that this portal will give us an ability to leverage corporations and individuals and just increase mentorships and just impact our students from kinder all the way through high school. So the purpose of our portal is really to provide a tool for teachers and staff to connect Lovejoy students with community experts and partners within Lovejoy ISD. It's to enhance the educational experience of our students, to continue to grow the Lovejoy legacy of excellence, and also, as I mentioned, to deliver on that identified priority from 2030 that was identified by all of our stakeholders. So who are our community partners here in Lovejoy ISD? Those are going to be our industry and business leaders, our parents, our Lovejoy alumni, our Lovejoy neighbors, senior community members, members of our Heritage Ranch community, and any other family members of our Lovejoy ISD students. Through this portal, our community partners will be able to engage with our students by sharing their expertise and knowledge, to mentor our students through various career and college-ready experiences, and to strengthen those student skills in the areas of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and problem solving, and then of course to build those leadership skills, develop self-confidence, and to instill characteristics from our Lovejoy graduate profile. So let me kind of show you what it's going to look like. As a community partner, I will be able to fill out a Google form that will allow me to input my information. So if it's linked to the image. Awesome. Awesome. So as a community partner, when I click on the link, this is what it's going to look like for me. So it's going to allow me to input the information needed for me to be connected from a staff member to a student. And it gets pretty specific as far as what my job type is and the type of industry that I'm involved in. Once I have filled out and submitted this Google form, it's going to store that information into the portal. Let me show you what a teacher would have a view of. So as a staff member or a teacher, I'm going to be able to log into the portal and I'm going to be able to filter down exactly the type of community partner I'm looking for, whether that's a guest speaker that I want to come in to my classroom, if I'm looking for someone to mentor or have an internship. And so you can see from this, I will be able to filter down and find exactly the type of person, community partner that I'm looking for. So how will we be sharing this information with our Lovejoy community? So as you know, we have Connect with Katie that it would be in, as well as our website. And then we have other ways that we connect with our community through community news, our Lovejoy links, and of course, all of our social media platforms. So to walk you guys through the process of what this would look like, first, our community members, we're going to communicate this opportunity through our different social media avenues and different sites. Once they have filled out the Google form, it's going to submit their information into the portal. From there, their information would be accessible only by someone in Lovejoy ISD. From there, we would ask that community partner to fill out a volunteer check, just to make sure that we have the most timely information available. From there, our Lovejoy staff would be able to connect that community partner to students. And of course, through that engagement of our community partners, we are going to enhance classroom experiences, build relationships, and form partnerships, as well as increase those future-ready skills that we identified. That's it for me. Do you guys have any questions? That's awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you guys tonight. And I want to again thank my two partners, Camille and Lisa. Thank you guys so much.
All right, thank you for that. Exciting development. Next item is item 15, and that would be to hear from our legislative subcommittee.
Thank you, sir. Just got a couple slides, kind of summarize some things that have happened and some things that are upcoming. As everyone knows, the 8th legislature session is in progress. It's about almost 2 weeks old now. In terms of tasks, what have been completed so far is, as many of you know, we've created and had obtained board approval of our legislative priorities. We've had creation and board approval of the legislative committee charter. We've done some discussions with some other entities such as Frisco ISD board and an organization called Raise Your Hand in Texas, which is Raise Your Hand Texas, which is an advocacy group. Not really for any type of platform, as we know we've already got our priorities already set, but mostly with respect to the how-to in creating a legislative advocacy framework and a calendar. And our ultimate goal is not only to have a calendar that's applicable to this legislative session, but really a 2-year program that will go every biennium with different things and different updates to be provided during that time. The committee members have started to review some of the filings. To be honest, there's a lot of them. As of the creation of this slide, 317 public education bills have been filed as of last week. It's now over 320 and climbing. A lot of them break down among different levels of property tax, school finance, and there's a bunch of different areas hit with all of these public education bills. In the coming months, we hope to be able to take bills that are in committee and or scheduled for vote and not only send alerts out about those, but also tie them to our legislative priorities. What's immediately upcoming is some of the legislative committee members are going to attend the TASA and the TASB legislative conference in Austin. That's on February 21st. And then we hope to have development of our legislative website and our content with links to resources and links to potentially letters, emails, form items that can be used by the community to advocate for certain legislative initiatives. And then we'll continue to review bills that are being filed, certainly watching for those that go to committee for testimony and for vote. The last day to file bills is, I thought this is the 60-day deadline. Yeah, it's March 10th. So bills will be filed up and through that point. These are just some dates for the legislature, which will run through January 10th through May 29th. If you look, the third one down, it says end of January, early February, Senate and House committee assignments released. I saw Senate Education Committee was released today. I have not seen House Education Committee. So right now, there's not a lot going on in terms of the legislature except with regard to bill filing and committee assignments. We've already talked about, yeah. So by no means is this a comprehensive review of the 321 plus bills, but these are some highlights and some that have interest and potential impact to Lovejoy ISD. Just really quickly, Senate Bill 88 and House Bill 882 are identical. They propose to raise the basic allotment to $7,775 and then index that basic allotment to annual inflation rates going forward. That's important. Obviously, for added revenue and address cost changes and inflation with respect to our maintenance and operations costs. Senate Bill 263 and House Bill 348. This is something that's really been talked about for a number of years, and I think would be a game changer for us and all school districts in terms of how student funding is calculated. So basically, those two bills propose using average enrollment instead of average daily attendance for purposes of student funding. The impact that would have is that for the first time, we'd be able to accurately tie student funding to maintenance and operation costs, meaning right now, student funding is determined on average daily attendance. If we used enrollment, we wouldn't be in the predicament that we're in now, where if you have 5 students missing from a classroom, you still paid the teacher, you still run the buses, you're still heating and cooling the room. And so all of our costs are fixed. And so this would be a more accurate way to calculate student funding. House Bill 1052 similarly proposes use of average enrollment for the special education allotment. That would provide the same benefit to the school district. And then there's a couple bills, and this is again part of many bills that potentially could represent unfunded mandates, which is something that we're not particularly fond of. But Senate Bill 38 and House Bill 342 would require school districts to provide full-day pre-kindergarten for 4-year-olds and some qualified 3-year-olds, but it does not provide any funding to be able to deliver that program. That raises a number of concerns. Number one being the unfunded mandate. It might require Lovejoy ISD to reduce funding from other programs in order to comply, and could eliminate Lovejoy's ability to collect tuition, which we do now for our pre-K program. So those are just some things to be on the lookout for. I expect in the coming months, as bills go to committee, we'll be sending out some alerts about bills we're excited about supporting and bills that we're excited about not supporting.
Thank you to the committee, Jason, Jeff, and Julie for the work you're doing, and appreciate the update tonight. Very helpful. So, thank you. All right. With that, item 16 is our budget workshop.
Good evening, President Owens, esteemed board members, and Superintendent Cordell. It's my pleasure this evening to give you the 3rd installment of the Budget Development Workshop for the 23-24 fiscal year. Today's goals, or at least some of the major ones, or this evening's goals, I would say, is to continue with the development process, obviously, and also to look and share some financial information, estimates, projections, a few things that we've tweaked since the last time, and give you any updates we have and some impact, possibly what the legislative session, some of the bills that have been filed would mean for the district, and then obviously to answer any questions. So it's my understanding that this is a long tradition with you to have identified focused areas, and that you've seen this slide before, but what I want to particularly call your attention to is that the financial sustainability, the emphasis on that, you will see that throughout these slides and hopefully this presentation, as we've embedded quite a bit of this into the slides. The budget priorities, fund balance. This is very important to the district to sustain a 90-day fund balance. And the reason why it's very important for this type of district, in my many years of experiences of working with many districts throughout the state, all kinds of sizes, shapes, number of students, wealth level, so on and so forth. This district does not receive a lot of state aid. And actually, you actually get some state aid, but you mostly pay recapture, or you will be quite a bit going forward if the wealth in the district continues. And in order to have cash on hand for you to meet payroll, particularly, you do not get your tax collections where your majority of your money comes from until late November, most of December. You don't get all of it by the end of December. A lot of people wait till January 31st because that's the last day before they become delinquent. So anyways, you have a funding issue with cash. And so it's very, very, very critically important for your district to have that goal of having a 90-day fund balance on hand or cash on hand, and particularly to be able to sustain it not only for next year, but all future years going forward. So hopefully we can work on that and draw that to your attention throughout this presentation. Compensation, obviously, to recruit and retain the best talent out there. We want to make sure we're competitive. And then attendance and enrollment, those two work, hand in hand as far as the assumptions that we make going forward, because that's where we get our state funding to be determined on what revenue we receive as well as what recapture we pay. Projections, so current and 23-24. Okay, so this is a brand new slide. You haven't seen this before, but what I asked Thomas Willman, our Senior Director of Financial Sustainability, to do is to start with where we're at with the board amended fiscal year 23 budget and bring it forward to where we think estimate projected based on today's assumptions and the things that we know today, we will end the fiscal 23 year with. So this is like part one. So some of the things that he's identified on the revenue side, and I will remind you the way this is presented, if you haven't figured it out yet, parentheses or brackets for revenues means going down, expenditures, again, parentheses, going up. So you can kind of take the connotation that parentheses are not good. But in this particular slide, he's identified some of these one-time things that we've been able to enjoy this year. Can't bake it into the future years because we don't really know. We can't rely on that. And then some things that may carry forward going forward. The main thing I want to point out on this slide, unless you have some very specific questions, is that the net impact to our revenue and expenditures in the current fiscal year that we're projecting at the end of the year will be a net increase of about $371,000 to the positive, no brackets, to our fund balance, which would represent 122, well above that 90 days fund balance to expenditures, cash on hand that we need to keep. Some of the budget development assumptions that we have in here, a couple of new things. The 7% annual property growth value, we right-size that based on the preliminary controller's values. Us in the finance school world called it the T2 value. But historically, looking back on how we've grown property value-wise for what the controller says our value is, required us to just be a little bit more conservative and say we'll probably have a 7% instead of an 8% increase, which is, I believe, was in the second budget workshop. We're still looking at carrying forward a 2% annual pay raise increase. This third workshop have now included about a 5% inflationary increase. We're starting to think about and work on our zero-based budgeting for the campuses and the departments, and a lot of the supplies have increased considerably, and we felt that we really needed to set aside some monies for the requests as they come in because of the inflationary pressures. And being able to sustain the same budget as last year may be a little bit more difficult. Enrollment projections, we will constantly and continue to review our enrollment projections. We have some slides in a minute on some demographic data. We're hoping to meet again with the demographer and maybe fine tune some things. And then also, of course, we've talked about Lovejoy scholars and trying to get a beat on what we think that estimate may be for next year and what we need to put in the budget, again, to be conservative. We're assuming a 95.5% attendance rate. So anything we can do, principals, to get that up higher just means more money in our pocket. And then, of course, continuing the tradition of putting aside 1% of our recurring revenue as a contingency for any unanticipated or unexpected surprises that might come our way in the future. Okay, so we saw the part 1 slide. Now we're going to the part 2 slide. So what we start with on the part 2 slide is what we think we're going to end the year with this year, which is basically our beginning starting point. And what is going to change between that number and what we might potentially ask the board to adopt as their final budget for both revenues and expenditures. So some of the things that Tom has highlighted, because previously I think you just saw a number. So now to get from that 43.9 revenue down to the 44.3, what has impacted that revenue going forward? So some of the bigger items would be tax collections are going up because of the property value increase, but look what it does on the expenditure side. Remember, parentheses are not good. So expenditures will go up because the property value, wealth, and the tax collections go up. And then, as you know, state funding in the state of Texas is such that as districts get richer, the state doesn't contribute as much unless we can get some of these bills passed this legislative session. And so we never really gain. We're just always in the same, it's just a shifting of the percentage of what the local taxpayers, the burden they have to pay in the district versus what the states contribute until they start, changing and tweaking some of the funding formulas. Some of the more bigger items, or I should say, let me just say in general, unless you have some specific questions about any one item, is that a lot of these numbers are based on the fact that enrollment's going down, property values are going up. And some of these one-time things, one of the bigger ones is the Texas Workforce Commission, the Child Care Grant Award. That was something that was not going to be a continual grant, and so that goes away. So that's probably one of the bigger contributors, other than the normal stuff that you would expect to see in revenue with declining enrollment and increased property values. And then on the expenditure side, we talked about the pay increase. So 2%, we showed you what that represents. If you wanted to tinker with that, you could see what 2% garners versus the 5% inflationary number that we just put in there. And then we have a TASB study and some recommendations for some really outliers that we felt we needed to do some market adjustments this time. Not all of them that was recommended, just what the ones that we thought would be affordable at this point in time. We're also looking at a recommendation to increase the medical benefits from $225 to $250, and then just some other costs and revenue drivers that will impact us changing in this third board workshop, the net impact to fund balance, and actually it'll be a deficit. But it'd be more accurate, but still, even with this 1 year deficit, if we don't end up to the positive based on, I hate to say the word breadcrumbs, but that comes to mind based on my past with legislative sessions, whatever we may garner from additional state aid that we get to keep and spend as we like. 108 days of cash on hand or fund balance to protect that 90-day threshold that we need to meet. Other budget development initiatives, and some items being evaluated for potential impact. Again, constantly each time we'll give you enrollment, attendance, updates, the legislative session. It's really great to see all the bills being filed and to get real hopeful. Been through too many legislative sessions. We'll probably know the last day of the session, or and if they don't go into summer session, then at that point in time. So it just makes it very difficult for June 30th fiscal year end districts to be able to put together, a budget to rely on any legislative changes that are impact our bottom line. So basically everything you see right now is current law, assuming nothing changes. And the thought that everything that's filed will stay that way the whole session would be hard to believe. I wouldn't hold my breath. And of course, staffing, we're having to look at staffing. We used the word scaling on one of the slides previously, and that was, working with staffing and right sizing things based on the number of, students that we'll have. Fees, part of the presentation at the end will be some suggestions for some things in the fees that we could do to garner some more revenue possibly. And then one of the big things that we're currently working on is instructional materials and some issues that this district had with having the proper instructional materials for the students and what the impact of getting us caught up to speed might be for the budget. Our scheduling that impacts students. So hopefully that's something that would be low on the priority of having to make any major changes. Compensation, benefits, always looking at programs and seeing if all of our programs are sustainable and need to go forward. And then again, doing the zero-based budgets and also be cognizant of any new grant funding that might help out on the operating sides, whether it's recurring or just one time. Enrollment, so a demographic update. This is just to remind you from the fall of 2021, this had been presented, to the board. The green line is the low assumption, red the high, and obviously blue is the middle. And this was district students only, and then adjusted for Lovejoy scholars, and at that time 300. And I believe Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, your projection numbers have 185 for the Lovejoy scholars, not the 300. That's part of the study. And then on the current enrollment, currently, based on what we've been looking at in these budget workshops and looking at a 5-year model for 23-24, we had in the last workshop 4,181 for enrollment, that kind of middle line, which is basically between the low and the moderate. But what we've done here for this particular budget draft, and probably the main component of why we're looking at a deficit budget for next year or a negative impact to our fund balance, is just projecting the number of students just by matriculating them up one grade level and then adding 50. Nothing real scientific about that, other than we feel comfortable that it would be conservative to build a budget on 4,050 students, unless we get some other news with a little update from the demographic relook at where we might be. Legislative session, I won't reiterate what was already said, but I will tell you we're working on the potential financial impact to some of the bills that have already been filed, the ones that particularly impact our revenue or our expenditures. House Bill 1 also has something, for instructional material allotment. And again, district our size probably won't gain a lot, but it's nice to know that they're recognizing the need to increase that by a little bit over $1 billion. The basic allotment, we ran some numbers on the basic allotment, the increase of $915 from the 6160 is the current amount. And that would garner about $4.9 million for the district. of which 1.1 million would have to go to compensation. And I have a slide next to show you how that all would work based on what's in current law in Chapter 48 of the Texas Education Code. And then, of course, the average enrollment. This is the first time I have ever seen this talked about where a actual bill was filed. I think it is in reaction to what happened in COVID. And both years, the majority of the districts having to be bailed out or held harmless because of their decline in the ADA. Yet all those, fixed costs were still there. We are one of a handful, maybe even one hand's worth of states in the country that actually don't have enrollment as what they base their funding on. So hopefully this is a move in the positive direction. I would guess that it'll be several legislative sessions before this actually happens, because I think they probably could not withstand the fiscal note because they have too much pressure on reducing property taxes again, and that is a priority of the governor and lieutenant governor, is to compress taxes even more. And I think those are the highlights there. So prior to that bill being followed, and you talk about, having to stay on top of this on a daily basis, almost hourly basis, I had asked, Thomas to run some numbers. Oh, what if it went up 100? Surely they'll give us $100. And maybe we could be so happy that it's 200. And of course, now it's 915. But in any event, it's just interesting to see how important state funding relates to the basic allotment and how much they give each student to the district, and what the impact would be to our fund balance, and what the net, we would actually go from this deficit budget with just $100 increase to a positive number, and then just look, exponentially what that would look like at the 150 and the 200 mark. And then actually bringing your days of fund balance all the way up to the 122. So right now in current law, anytime the basic allotment increases, the districts have some things that they have to abide by. And that currently is 30% of that increase. And this is the confusing part. When you run it through the summary of finance template, what you really get and what they're saying you have to spend don't necessarily match. And sometimes you actually get less, because this is a straightforward, take the basic allotment and multiply times the ADA, but don't run it through all the complications of how you fall with tier 1, tier 2, and all that. And so Thomas obviously, ran his numbers, put this slide together and said, currently we would meet the requirements of the spending that's within our budget at this 2% compensation. Anything outside of that 200, we would have to revisit, because we may have more obligations to put money into compensation and or benefits. So it could also, apply to like the health insurance, premium to meet that criteria. 30% going to the teacher group, which is classroom teachers, counselors, librarians, nurses, and then support staff would be the other 25% of that 30% to get to 100% of the 30. Staffing and currently what's in the budget is funding formulas to staff based on student teachers, the required 22-to-1 for K through 4, intermediate 24-to-1, Willow Springs and the high school at 25-to-1. And at that moment, those are our current staffing ratios and are in this budget. And fees, that would be Kevin.
Thank you, Debbie. Or just like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about facilities, the Lovejoy 2030, the Financial Sustainability Subcommittee wanted us to look at fees and how we apply fees potentially as we go through the spring, maybe even consider fees as we build out the budget for the 23-24 school year. So the first set of fees that I wanted to look at, as we all know, we charge for transportation in the district. And if we go back over the past couple of years, in the 21-22 school year, we collected $393,413 in bus fees. Our anticipated revenue for this year was $392,000. And if you'll remember, our current fees, the way we have them structured is you can choose to either ride the bus before and after school, or choose one or the other, an AM or a PM. And for the before and after school, we charge $350. We give families the option of paying that all up front, of course, or they can pay it by semester. We have some families that want to ride just for the first semester, and they may drop off. They may not use the transportation services for the second semester. If they choose either AM or PM, the fee for the year is $280, or they can pay $140 per semester. So currently we have 1,523 bus riders, and year to date we've collected $426,137. So we have surpassed by roughly almost $30,000 what our projected revenue from transportation fees are. But if you look at our cost to actually provide transportation services, it's a pretty hefty figure. It's over $1.1 million, almost $1.2 million. We do get a little bit of reimbursement, not much, but we do get a little bit of revenue from state transportation allotment, which is $185,436. And so our net to the district, after we collect fees, after we get the transportation allotment for this year, will be roughly $582,021. So in order to give you kind of a window of fees to consider as we go through the spring, and how much we can obviously do an array of things. We can keep fees the way that they are now. We can raise them whatever rate or whatever increase you want to, all the way up to charging fees to completely cover transportation costs. And so what I've given you on the last little column over there is if we wanted to charge fee for every rider, and remember, this is without applying a family cap. Right now, we have a family cap of $700. So if a family has 4 children and they want all of their children to ride before and after school, instead of paying $350 for each student, which would be, what is that, $1,400, they would be capped at $700. So not considering a cap, if we wanted each rider to pay a fee to cover the entire cost based on this year's rider total. Rider total, it's Siri didn't give me this number, but it's $662, and that would cover all of our costs for all of our transportation costs. If we charged a $500 per rider fee, that would generate $761,500, and if we charged $400 per rider, it would be $609,200. Again, we can charge anything from keeping fees the way they are, all the way up to that $662 per rider. So that'll be some fees to consider as we go through the spring and build out the budget for the 23-24 school year. Any questions on the transportation?
Is that total all in, the 1.19 million, would that include required transportation that we're required to provide through our special education program?
Yes, that's all transportation, except for maybe like field trips, anything like that. That's our route transportation, yes. That includes personnel, it includes benefits, insurance, all that for our drivers and our transportation.
And one thing it says that those amounts do not include a family cap, is what I think I heard you say. Just want to validate.
All of which amounts?
The fees that you have in
on
there.
The right-hand side under moving forward, that does not include a family cap.
Thank you.
When we're talking about this, we're strictly talking about M&O, nothing on the actual capital of any of the.
Any other questions on transportation? So going forward, looking at potential, okay, good. This slide was really complicated and confusing, so I'll talk through this, but I'll break it down much simpler. If we also, going through the spring semester, if we wanted to consider fees, because one of the recommendations to look at fees for fine arts and athletics participation. If we wanted to look at fees and potential fees that we wanted to apply to fine arts and athletics participation, we can, I'm just going to break it down and give you some numbers on what revenue different fees would produce. I'm going to skip past this because it is a very confusing slide. So I'm going to go down to a much more simple slide. I told Katie I got really carried away on Canva. I've never used Canva, and I got really excited about the colors and everything. And I got so excited that it didn't make sense. So I went back to a slide in black and white, and this is much more understandable. So right now in fine arts, we have 883 students that participate in fine arts at Lovejoy High School. We have 450 students that participate in fine arts at Willow Springs Middle School. And you can see, based on if it were a $100 fee, it would generate this amount of money at Lovejoy High School and $45,000 at Willow Springs. And you can see, of course, what a $250 fee. And this is if students paid for every activity. So if they participated in both athletics and fine arts, they would pay this fee for both of them. This is what that would generate. This is the same thing for athletics. We have 807 students participating at Lovejoy High School, 557 at Willow Springs Middle School. This is what that $100 fee would generate, $250 fee would generate, and $500 fee would generate if we decided to move forward with this. So when we total all of this out, the approximate fees, approximate amount of money generated by fees, based on this year's numbers for both middle school and high school campuses, a $100 fee, again, paying for each activity that they participate in, would generate just under $270,000. A $250 fee would generate almost $675,000, and a $500 fee would generate a little over $1.3 million. But we have a lot of kids, we have some kids that participate in both. And so if, going forward into the spring, we wanted to charge an extracurricular fee, so what that means is if they participate in extracurricular activities, they pay one fee. It doesn't matter how many activities they participate in. We can look at how much that would generate as well. So right now we have 110 students at the high school that participate in both athletics and fine arts. And at the middle school, we have 226 students that participate in both. So if we had students pay a fee, a $100, $250, or a $500 fee, just as an extracurricular fee, no matter how many activities they participated in, we would generate this amount of money across the district for both the Lovejoy High School and Willow Springs Middle School. That's better than the first slide, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. So some considerations, and this is just a very preliminary, very preliminary conversation that we had about a fee structure. There's some other things that we would want to consider going into once we get further into the budget process, and we get more information from the legislative session, and we really have to start considering, do we want to charge fees? Is that something that do we need to have that revenue? Or were some decisions made in the legislative session that we don't need the revenue? But going forward, some of the things that we want to consider are, if we charge fees, would we want that to be per activity, or just one fee, one extracurricular fee, no matter how many activities that they participate in? We also want to consider, we do have some academic extracurriculars as well, and how would fees be applied to those academic extracurriculars? Lovejoy Scholars. Lovejoy Scholars pay a tuition right now. Would we want Lovejoy Scholars to pay the fee on top of their tuition? That would be another consideration that we would want to think about. Again, is there a family cap? Just like transportation, we have a family cap based on the number of family members. We apply a cap to transportation. Would we want to cap the amount of fees that a family contributes? Do we want to charge fees, or maybe even a reduced amount of fees, for economically disadvantaged students? And what would the impact be on participation numbers if fees are implemented? Right now, we may have a student in, let's say, orchestra, and they may like doing orchestra. They don't love doing orchestra, but they enjoy it, right? But if we charge a $250 fee, do they really want to do orchestra now? And so it could potentially have an impact on our participation numbers if we implement fees. And then two, we don't want to forget about boosters. And this wasn't on here, but what the impact would be to boosters if we implemented fees as well. So those are just some preliminary thoughts, some preliminary discussions, or preliminary numbers to stir your thinking to get on how we could potentially close a budget gap in the event that we needed to. Any questions?
Do we know of any here or surrounding districts that have done this work already, or potentially gone down this road and studying that, I'm assuming, as part of this process?
Yeah, I do know that I don't know the specific ones. I do know there's some area districts who do charge extracurricular fees. The further we get into this process and we get more into the conversations, we would want to reach out to them. We don't want to recreate the wheel here. We want to kind of have a baseline and then kind of make what they're doing our own and make it fit it to how it's going to best benefit our families and the school district here in Lovejoy.
Primary reason I ask is it was difficult when we went through this process in trying to figure out the right way to implement the scholars program. That was not a perfect analogy, but it was a new need for some families. And we had a lot of hypotheticals, so we didn't know exactly how it was going to impact. Because there weren't many other districts doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's anything we can do to help answer those questions about how does it impact the participation, how does it impact boosters, how does it, the more information we can get will help us make that decision.
So another thing to clarify, and I think it's created concern throughout the community and a desire for more understanding maybe. If you're paying the fee, so say I have kids in athletics, and I'm paying that fee, how do I know that goes to support, and I'll just use my kids because I've got tennis and baseball. How do I know when I pay that fee, it's supporting those two programs versus going into the general fund? You know what I'm saying? Parents want to know if I'm paying this fee, does it really support orchestra? Does it really support tennis? So can you talk more to like the way of thinking around what this does for supporting it?
It would go to support those programs. What you have to remember is the operating costs for those programs aren't the only costs, if you will, to those programs. There are personnel costs. There are facilities costs to run electricity, to pay custodians to come in. I mean, there's all kinds of costs rather than just the day-to-day cost of that. And so any of the fees that go to the extracurriculars would be applied to the extracurriculars that their kids are participating in.
It's more preserving a program when you pay this fee, because it's helping fund the coach or the
Without a doubt.
director, the maintenance and upkeep of the field, you know, whatever.
That's absolutely correct. That's right. That's right. That's correct. Any other questions? Great.
And then our final slide for the evening is just an update on the budget development process. We've changed our approach on a couple of things, which would be reflected in this particular calendar, different than what you've seen at the last workshop. One of the asks that I had was before anyone came to present their zero-based budget, campus or department, that they went through their appropriate cabinet member first and vetted out with them to get their approval on any of the items on the zero-based budgeting, particularly if they're asking for an increase. And then we scheduled a meeting for the cabinet to go over all of those budgets, because having to prioritize those budgets, considering the current law situation we're in and looking at a deficit fund balance, is really more of a cabinet decision. It's certainly not a finance decision. And then the other thing we've slid off of here is on our capital capital needs and being able to look at what we've currently spent and what we have left of the current $5 million that we have in the bank versus what we really need to focus on the 9.5 million that's remaining in the authorization back from 2014. A lot has changed from 2014. So we'll be meeting with the architect and looking at what some of the preventative maintenance items that have been postponed that now need to be addressed that possibly would be the use of either the remaining 5 million, which I've estimated about 2.7 million is still out there. And obviously the 9.5 elementary roof, I know when I was down in Lancaster, came in at about $1 million. So they're not very inexpensive by any means, but I did not give you an opportunity to ask any questions. I can certainly go back on any slide if you had a particular question. And then also I would like to ask you a question if there's anything in particular that we need to incorporate in the next budget workshop, any scenarios that our number whiz, Mr. Willman, can run for us.
I don't know that I have a question, but I have a couple of comments. One, I really appreciate the work you've done in a short amount of time and being with us, and thank you for being here. It's I like the presentation and some of the ways you're presenting this to us. I think it'll help us. The slide on the basic allotment sensitivity is something that is extremely eye-opening to me, and I think it circles back to the update Jeff gave about the legislative update. A couple of community members have approached me asking about the legislative subcommittee and what can we do, and people are anxious to get involved, which I think is awesome. We've got a great community of people that want to be involved and help. If there's one priority that you want to start talking to your legislators about, it would be the increase of the basic allotment. They're talking about big numbers in the bills that have been filed. I don't want to get too optimistic, but this just shows you the slide that you showed in this presentation. Even $100 has a huge impact to our district. And the basic allotment hasn't been increased since 2019. The world's changed a lot since 2019, not having any type of inflation rider on that. Any of those, if we could start building those relationships with the people that can make a difference, that could have a huge impact for us. So thank you for being here.
Oh, you're most welcome.
You asked the question about what additional information we might see. I know that we've used 2% as a compensation increase. We've used that quite a bit in just general conversation as sort of a placeholder. I think maybe that may not be the right amount going forward that should be considered. So I'd be interested to know, separated between our campus versus our additional staff, what a different salary rate might look like in total amounts.
Okay. And then is it your standing philosophy that every group gets the same?
I think that's why I'd like to see it on 2 charts, just so that we understand the impact points to that.
Okay. And then differentiate between specifically campus versus non-campus.
I'll defer to your expertise
on
the grouping there. But I also really like to see that you're taking a look at the medical benefits. I think that's necessary in this environment.
Yeah, and I believe that's something that we plan on addressing in the next session, next workshop session.
Kind of to Jason's point, it's so valuable having all of your wisdom from the various districts you've been in. Is such a neat opportunity for us to have your eyes on our district, and we appreciate all of that knowledge you're bringing forward and getting all the different perspectives to.
Yeah, 2 things I say is that numbers don't lie, and that it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of the number of zeros you have after your budget, your student enrollment, your, whatever. But we're really basically all the same.
Thank you. Item 17 is to consider an act on the Lovejoy Scholars Program planning for 23 and 24 school year. Ms. Koenig?
First of all, I want to thank Debbie too. She has been a delightful, and I have learned quite a bit from her already just in the last few weeks. Just wanted to take a few moments to review what we discussed. Of course, this did come up during our financial sustainability committee as we were meeting. One of the strategies we were going to look at is other ways to identify, just kind of generate some revenue there to provide some financial sustainability for us. I shared this at our last board meeting. Just Lovejoy Scholars to Residents. We do know that is a way for our scholars to become residents. It's kind of like they try us before they commit to us and invest in our schools, and we appreciate that. So from there, I also shared just by grade level, and as you know, right there you can see we had 15 kindergartners coming in, and we have 17 12th graders leaving us there. So those numbers are pretty consistent. And then I also shared just basically for spring 23 about what our collection would be for the spring. Actually, we have enrolled 3 more Lovejoy Scholars today as just as we continue to review those. So we do have some open enrollment enrolled some today there. And then once again, looking at removing the 17 Lovejoy Scholars for next year, and just if we keep up that number of 212 there, that's what that would look like, a little bit over 500,000 if we kept the rates the very same as we did this year. Just wanted to share some, I did do a sibling survey and had talked with you. We had about 50% of Lovejoy Scholars had completed it, and that might be only the ones that have siblings, but there was not any change as far as the 12 siblings that were accepted and that may or will apply, and of course the 4 siblings at the 9,000. I will tell you, since January 18th, I have over 130 interest forms completed. So when I did this last week, I had 111. So there is a large amount of interest. I have 3 calls, I think, right now on my answer machine waiting for me to answer about if this program is going to be approved tonight. So there. Also, I did review the timeline, the draft timeline, and mainly I did this because I surveyed some private schools of when they did their collection. And I of course never want to put parents in a hardship, but also I think this would help us not only with our budget development, but also, as you recall, we had several Lovejoy Scholars acceptance that did not. We accepted and they had to pay by July 15th, and then they decided not to join our school district. And so I think this would help, and it would also help me plan this summer for those that would come in August. And so I tried to look at, just kind of look at the timeline there and adjust. And you can see it was not much. I really would like to do returning scholars acceptance notices before March 13th. That would be my busy spring break. And then new scholars about 2 weeks later, from moving that up a little bit. And then having the tuition due May 1st instead of May 15th, as I had planned, because there's a board meeting that way. And as we move to June and develop the budget, I just think that'd be a little bit more realistic and what we can count on there. And then opening up the second round of applications. And then of course the balance we always have in November. And that's when we collected this past year. So you can see it's about 5 months to prepare our families also for that tuition collection. Okay, any questions about timeline? Okay. I am, as we talked about last time, I think we would recommend, would want you to consider an act on, of course, we will have the responsibility for determining admission criteria, admission to the program, and we use a committee approach to that. We also do, our students during the 21-22 school year and have been continuous enrolled in Lovejoy ISD would have a tuition of $4,000 per school year. So those that were here that first year when we were not charged, and then this past year that were charged the $4,000 tuition, their siblings would also have that, the $4,000 as a sibling rate if that sibling was here in 21-22. And then of course last year, or this year, we started the $9,000 rate, and that would continue. And I'm recommending for the next 2 years, mainly just for the consistency in the program, and so our parents know what to expect. and we can find some, just some consistencies, and so that they're aware of kind of what there is to come as far as this program. But that is what we are recommending there. Questions for me concerning that program?
Would you anticipate that we would do kind of a rolling two-year approval, or that we wouldn't revisit it again for 2 more years?
No, I definitely think next year we would definitely look again and see. Also, we need to look and see how many actually Lovejoy scholars come in this fall. I know, back in November, I was getting questions, when will we know? When will we know? Are we raising, tuition? Just parents trying to prepare for that. February 1st will be I've completed 1 year here, and so this was very new to me, and so I'm learning,
Thanks for being here this past year.
Yeah, I'm learning the program, but I also anticipate just the interest level and spending some time with our parents that, it's possible, we could increase students in the program, possibly. I just don't know. The $9,000 is very different than the $4,000 tuition rate. So we just haven't seen it through yet. So I'm kind of curious to see how many renewals we have. Right now, the interest is high, and I do think we will see those renewals. And I think we'll continue to see the $4,000 renewals and the $9,000 renewals.
I think when you factor in the uncertainty and us doing this year to year, if you eliminate that,
right,
the uncertainty around whether or not you're going to be able to bring your kids here probably, in my mind, trumps the money if you are in the
agree.
class where you're going to be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think providing certainty that this program is going to be here and that the board is behind it and that we want to do it should likely improve on those applications coming in if they have interest, to know that we see this program existing long-term and we want to look forward a bit more and be proactive with that. So I got to think it can only help them ease their minds.
Yes.
And we don't want that uncertainty anyway.
Right. And we always do what's best for kids. And we want the stability for kids. We want our kids here. We want them to stay. We have wonderful opportunities for kids, and we want to continue those opportunities. And I think it's just a peace of mind. I do.
The other thing I think to note to the community is the 212 students, 519,000, that's only from the tuition revenue. That doesn't include.
That is not current per pupil.
Our allotment that we get on attendance, which is the 6,200 plus
6190
plus any other state funding. So there's
Right.
a substantial number behind this, in addition, that Lovejoy benefits by beyond this tuition piece. So
I think this past year we budgeted, and Thomas, correct me, a little bit over 800,000, 825 maybe, and we 1.1 million, about 1.1 million from the program. So we were anticipating about 17 at the $9,000 tuition rate, and I believe there were 34. But once again, they're moving into the district, so. Yes, ma'am.
I think too, being proactive gives us the information we need. I like the thought of 50% of your tuition's due in May. If you're gonna pay 50%, you're serious about coming here.
Right.
That gives us a better snapshot of what does this look like. And it also is more aligned with a private school entrance, similar
Tuition.
calendar type, right?
The
If
deposit.
they're not gonna want to go to the public school system they live in and they're interested in coming here and they aren't gonna come here potentially, they're gonna wanna, so we need to be fair to them in this. I think they'll choose us.
Right.
But I like the proactiveness. I like stability for them. I think that's fair. So.
you said something the other day, remind me, the folks that are coming here on our tuition program, are they evaluating Lovejoy against where they live, or are they evaluating Lovejoy against a private school?
A little bit of both. A lot of them are doing it where they live. And very honestly, we do get a lot of applicants from Allen ISD, and a lot of it's at Allen High School. You'll see our numbers go up 7th and 8th grade, moving into high school. Some of them are, even today, the ones that started today, if you look at their transcripts and tuition, they're top-notch kids. They were in gifted and talented programs. They're very involved. They're state cheerleaders. All our programs attract that. Our
But
band.
it would seem that if they're not coming here, they're probably not going where they are. They're probably going to private school.
Right. Correct.
That was my question.
Right.
Are they going to go back to school where they are if they don't come here? Or are they going to go
No,
to private
they're
school?
going to probably go to private school.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was what I was trying to
Yeah.
understand.
Sorry.
I just think this program is so additive to our district because it brings really committed, wonderful families and kids, and it's also a really smart financial decision because it allows us to monetize the extra capacity that we have in our buildings, which allows us to continue operating offering the programs that we do.
Is there anything we have to evaluate with this, with the legislative session ongoing? Any risks to the program, which I know we had to talk about a few years ago? Are we paying attention to that at all? I know
yes.
there's at least a couple of bills filed that are talking about transfers and things of that nature. It's something to be at least paying attention to.
Right, and I saw those also, and we're monitoring those. Yes.
If there are no questions, consider a motion on the recommendations.
Second.
So moved, Ann Smith, second, Julie McLaughlin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Glad to get that done. All right, tonight is a fun night for us. We got an opportunity to, and this is an update really for the community. We got an opportunity to review Miss Cordell in closed session. And what I would share with you from a community perspective is that we continue to highly appreciate and value the exceptional work that Ms. Cordell is doing with us. If you think about a snapshot of where the district was when she came on board, and you take a picture again of where we are today, there has been tremendous work done that has been done with a high level of expertise and integrity and care and love for our district and our kids. And I think that was reflected in our review of Ms. Cordell. We are grateful for that work. So that's kind of my update. You can read between the lines. We're very pleased with Ms. Cordell's work. We continue to, it's never a destination. It's always a process, and we continue to hold accountable and create accountability in that process. But as you might expect, people that are driven and are experts are harder on themselves than we ever could be. And I know a lot of you in the room are like that. And Ms. Cordell expects excellence on every regard from herself and from her team, and she drives that. And so we're grateful for that. Thank you. Item 19, each year we, commensurate with the review, with her review, we look at the contract for Ms. Cordell. And each year we evaluate that and we determine whether or not we're going to add a year of service to Ms. Cordell's contract, offer that to her. And tonight I would like to ask the board to consider adding a year to Ms. Cordell's contract. That's the only change we'll be making to the contract, simply the dates, adding 1 year of service. No changes to compensation, and as our goals continue as they have been. So with that, I'd open that up for questions or discussion or entertain a motion.
It would be my honor to ask the board to accept this recommendation.
So moved. Julie McLaughlin.
Second.
Second, Jeff and Marvin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. All right, item 20, consider and act on cell phone repairs. Kevin.
Yeah, I don't think there's a slide.
Just
It's
messing
okay.
with you a
It's
bit.
it's just the executive summary, I think. If you'll remember back in July of 2022, the board approved some bond money to purchase and install cell phone repeaters into 4 locations: Lovejoy High School, the Transportation Department, Hart Elementary, and LCDC. And the purpose of this was to support some of the safety infrastructure that we were implementing throughout the district, to make sure that we had coverage, because that was important to some of the safety features that we had. As with many things at that time, and maybe even still now, but there was a backlog and a delay in getting some of those items in. As we were waiting to get some of those items in, we were doing surveys of the different sites. The number in that quote, at that time, it was $81,250 was the amount that it was going to cost to install those cell phone repeaters. That was based on square footage of the high school of 205,000 square feet. That was the most recent square footage that our vendor had of the high school. After doing surveys of the high school, they learned that they gave us a quote based on that, and when in actuality, the high school is 290,000 square feet. And so even though square footage is a very reliable source of coverage for the vendor, it has to be an accurate square footage that they gave us. And also doing some of the other surveys of the other locations, it was also determined that the Child Development Center had adequate coverage cell phone wise in its district without installing the cell phone repeaters, not only with doing some of the surveys, but also informally just visiting with the staff, never having any problems. So in order to expand the coverage at the high school and include all 290,000 square feet, one of the questions back in July, if I remember correctly, someone asked, does that include all of the cell phone providers, the three main providers, AT&T, Verizon, and what is the other one, T-Mobile? And as I walked through doing the survey with them, that does include coverage for all three of the providers throughout those facilities. But in order to expand the coverage at the high school, to remove coverage at Child Development Center, because there is adequate coverage here, but also to install at Transportation and Hart Elementary, it would increase the expense to by $19,850 up to $101,100. And so if the board would consider action and take a vote, that's what we would ask, is the additional $19,850 to cover that at the high school.
Questions? If not, consider a motion. So moved, Julie McLaughlin. Second, Jeff Wood. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
By the way, the parts are in, they're ready to install. So since it's been approved, they'll be able to move on it pretty quickly.
Good. I need to back up for just a minute to item 18. I shared with the community the evaluation. I didn't ask the board to approve that formally. So if I could ask you all to approve that, consider a motion.
So moved.
So moved. Ann Smith.
Second.
Second, Amy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 18. Thank you, Rodrigo. Now we're going back to item 21. Consider an act on calling a school trustee general election for May 6th, 2023.
I ask that the board please consider an act on item number 21, consider an act on calling a school trustee general election for May 6th, 2023, and also moving to a contract with Collin County.
Okay. Heard the request.
I move that we call an election for May 2023 and enter into a contract with Collin County.
So moved, Julie McLaughlin. Second, Jason James. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item 22, Ms. Cabrera, consider an act on purchase of engineering kits.
Again, good evening, Board of Trustees, and then also Dr. Tinsley is here to answer any questions you might have, particularly pertaining to the program. I will be able to certify, though, that our purchasing department, in seeking the best value for the district, was able to piggyback on an interlocal agreement with the Lido ISD. The vendor is Project Lead the Way, and this is for the acquisition of engineering kits. The funding will be out of the JET grant, Texas Workforce Commission, that the district has this year. The engineering kits are part of a program that I will let Dr. Tinsley speak to.
Basically, what this grant, these are, we'll be able to expand for more students to actually have access to kits than what we've had over in the programming with our robotics program. So
Mr. Strickland feels like this will really enhance those opportunities for our students. And he said this was probably the number 1 priority in that grant that he needed fairly soon. So
It's funded by the grant.
yes, it is fully funded by the grant.
Awesome.
This grant was awarded was a little over $450,000. And so we're bringing this one forward because it exceeds the $75,000 amount. And so that requires board approval.
Perfect. Further questions, motion?
So moved. I move that we approve this expenditure that's fully funded by grant.
Item 22, consider an act on the purchase of engineer kit. So moved, Marvin Bobo. Second, Jeff Wood. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right.
Sorry, I thought you were moving on.
You're like vote tonight.
I'm Rogue. I was just repeating what the motion was.
Yeah, sorry.
Just want to make sure. we
Just
vote.
making it clear. All right. Item 23 is cabinet reports.
Okay, again, good evening, trustees, Superintendent Cordell. This is my first cabinet report, so in trying to figure out what I thought might be important, the December financial statement, since it's part of the consent agenda, and we really don't have an opportunity to talk very much about that. My slide that I prepared, the majority of that, it will cover some of the highlights in the monthly financial report. Obviously, we already went over the first point in updating the forecast and enrollment in the budget workshop. But some of the highlights in the financial report I wanted to call to your attention is as of the end of December 31st, we had 164 days cash on hand. And the majority of that is coming from the tax collections that we received in December, about $14.4 million, which is a couple $1 million more than last year, but that's not surprising because of the increase in the property values, even though the compressed rate went down. But percentage-wise, it's a little bit down, and the rationale that I got from the county tax office is December 31st did not fall on a weekday, and so usually a lot of people come in, since that was on the weekend, we'll probably see a lot more funds coming in January. We get daily tax reports, and I've been looking at them, and they're coming in on target. We also had an increase in our interest revenue beyond the budget, which was also included in your budget workshop this evening, by about some $22 million because of the increase during the school year of the interest rates. The debt service, thank you for paying your taxes. The $7.6 million will go towards paying our February 15th debt payment, which also includes a $3.2 million defeasance of debt, paying off debt early to save a substantial amount of interest. The Lovejoy Scholars, as of December 31st, it exceeded the budget by the 192,000. Facility rentals, again, exceeding the budget by 39, as well as the transportation fee revenue exceeding the budget by 34,000. Again, this is as of the 31st of December. And then the overall expenditures are actually down about 5% last year, same time. And of course, we are currently looking at a payroll analysis that I asked Thomas to see if we have any money savings on unfilled positions and vacancies beyond what he's already included in the budget, as well as over any savings that you might have on teacher turnover. Typically, when teachers leave, you're thinking more experienced teachers will leave and less experienced will come in. Well, actually, what we did find out is that in this district, you went the other way and you had more less experienced teachers leave than the ones that you hired, which is a good thing. And you went from like about a 9-year average teacher experience to, I think, 11. And that was my update for you this evening.
One question on the 5%. I've noticed that when I looked at the financials, my assumption is that it's just because we have lower staff headcount. Is that
A
probably
lot of
accurate?
vacant positions. Being conservative, we typically would budget for 100% occupancy, and then that just doesn't, happen. And when you're basically halfway through the year and those positions are still left unfilled, that's a substantial savings. But it is a changing number as far as what we put into the budget workshops, because at any moment a position could be filled, and then that savings projected out, goes away.
Thank you.
Yes. I wanted to also clarify on the transportation fee, we were over the amount we budgeted of what we thought people would sign up for. It's not over what the program costs. I just wanted to clarify to anyone watching at home that knows we're talking about all this, just so you know.
More riders.
Correct. It doesn't mean we've paid for the whole program. So,
No, this is just what
it was earlier tonight, but I just,
yeah.
if someone had just tuned in, I wanted to just make sure.
Yeah, comparing the revenue that's budgeted to what we've
It's
actually
always the
collected.
guess on who's gonna ride and who
Yes.
isn't, so,
You're right on.
thank you.
As Mrs. Cabrera noted earlier, one of our priorities is looking at our instructional materials. And this has been a year-long process that we've been working on in the curriculum instruction department. We started an inventory process in September. We involved our teachers, our campus principals, and our department staff. And I wanted to report the findings from the inventory that was completed in late December or before the break. We identified that we had several courses and some content areas that did not have primary instructional resources that they needed. We determined that some of these resources that we did have may have been outdated. Maybe they were not aligned to the current standards. Some were not age appropriate. We also had made some decisions in prior years about instructional materials that maybe were not sustainable with ongoing costs that are incurred. So the ongoing, if they're digital sources, how are we budgeting and planning for that in the future? And then also looking at some of our content within the resources that were not aligned to district and community values. And this doesn't just include the resources that you would see like textbooks or some of your more primary resources, but it also, we're looking at library materials as well too. So what are we doing at this time? We're prioritizing our immediate needs regarding those instructional materials and building a budget. So we're looking at short-term needs, immediate needs, and then long-term, so that we can get our teachers their primary resources they need. And that's going to be developed through a plan. And then we're also, because of the so many digital resources, it's being impacted by our digital our devices. And several meetings ago, I came forward with some recommendations with technology. So those are kind of going hand in hand with the analysis that we're doing and proposing the costs that we're going to have. We really just want to get ahead of it and not be behind and trying to catch up, and use our instructional materials allotment for the purpose of new adoptions that are coming forward. And we think we can get there. Mrs. Cabrera's been very helpful in looking at some options that we might have that can get us in better shape sooner than we had thought. So I should be coming to you in a future meeting with some updates on that. Just an update on the technology devices. Mr. Korb was telling me that the devices that you approved, I believe in December, they're scheduled to be delivered in early February. So they should be here soon. And then we're just completing delivery of some devices that were purchased by the foundation for our teachers as well too. So we're moving forward. We still have some gaps, but at least we're moving forward. This just kind of gives you a timeline of the process that we followed. Something that we're currently doing right now is that we are going out on, our department reps are going out on campuses, and we're talking to teachers and just answering some Q&A and getting some feedback from them, so that we can create some transparency and partnerships to ensure we get them what they need.
Good evening. You've heard me say before around Special Olympics, it's one of the great opportunities to see the work that our student athletes have been doing on the campus and really showcasing that competition spirit. On January 13th, we had 24 of our student athletes that attended their bowling competition. A lot of thank yous go into that because really our special education teachers and paraprofessionals really started back in the end of September and October, not only practicing in the classroom, but also then stepping to Allen Bowl to then apply those skills that they've been working on in the classroom and then to competition. The other integral piece, and you'll see some pals that are located in the pictures, and definitely it's such a nice opportunity. I always say our student athletes tolerate us as adults, but they love their peers, and to see that reciprocal relationship is just really amazing to watch. We had 2 board members that attended, Mr. Bobo and Mr. Wood. Mrs. Cordell was there, Dr. Tinsley was there, and really the piece that some of the staff that put on the competition said, I hope you know that's not usual. Like that normally doesn't happen, that you have that type of attendance from the district and the community support that comes to the event. And I said, I know, but that's what we do in Lovejoy, and that's the right thing to do. The other part is that we are looking forward to our upcoming competitions, which is basketball, and we've already started practicing. February 15th is Van Alstyne and March 2nd is Anna. And we're looking to add some additional competitions. We're not there yet, but we will keep you updated. The one group I also wanted to just send appreciation to is our transportation department. And one thing that they did, and most people have no idea this even happened, we took 3 buses down, and so really it's pretty strategic because we have our students, student athletes, our pals, have all the adults, and so we get everybody there and things are going great. And we find out that the power steering line on one of the buses, it created a lot of mess in the parking lot. And so transportation did a fabulous job of sending 2 buses along with the mechanic to deal with the bus that was broke down, but also to be able to make sure that we were able to get students back. And that takes a lot because they're also in charge of making sure that they're getting routes taken care of at the campus level. So definitely appreciate the work that they did. The other piece that I failed to share for our pals, we had pals that either had basketball commitments, so practice in the morning, or Mr. Bobo and I even ran into a young lady that was running late. She was very honest and was running late, but it was important to her. She had her mom bring her. And that was also the same case for some of our basketball athletes that definitely wanted to be a part of it, but they were not able to leave at the same time the bus was and wanted to be there and celebrate. So again, just the caliber of the students that we have in the district and how really supporting one another is important. So back in the fall, you approved us to be able to increase the pay for guest educators who are subbing in special education positions, whether that's a teacher or a paraprofessional, but they would have to go through additional training. And so in October was our first round. Our goal was to be able to complete another round of training before we left for fall break. For winter break, sorry. And it was a day that there were a lot of events that were going on within the district. And so we opted to reschedule that for January because we wanted to make sure that campuses had subs in the classrooms to be able to support the instruction that was going on. So on January 12th, our 2 coordinators, Heather Fisher and Allison Clunch, were able to support 18 additional guest educators who went through the training. Also, our 3 instructional coaches, they came and helped supported the training as well. So now we're up to 35 guest educators that have had the training, and thus far, feedback from our campus principals, and we've not crunched data yet. We wanted to get this additional group trained and really start looking at, but the positive feedback from our campus administrators around subfill rates in the classrooms has definitely moved in the right direction. So it is difficult. We do have a lot of events and people out, and so trying to manage that, but definitely the caliber of guest educators that have been coming, we're really excited. So this will look familiar, and these are the two grants that we as a district applied for. They're 2-year grants, the dyslexia grant and autism grant. So I've continued to try to give you updates as we've gone along the way of what we're working on. On the autism grant, our special education staff, and generally our staff that support students who have a higher level of special education services, have gone through the training. They continue to receive job-embedded coaching. That means someone from STAR or LINKS, and STAR Autism is the elementary side of the house, LINKS is the secondary, so that's why there's 2 different names. They're coming on site anywhere from 1 to 2 times each month to go into the classroom, do coaching, live coaching, support where there may be some areas that the teacher says, hey, I really want to work on this. They actually then, after their coaching sessions, send a follow-up of here's what we worked on, here's any resources. Many of the resources are on an online platform that our teachers already have access to, but what the coaches do is says, I'm going to save you some time, pull this out and have it there for you. And so they send that, and then our campus administrators receive a copy of that too as they're supporting in the classroom. I mentioned, I believe last time, we were moving forward with general education behavior training, and although it falls under the autism grant, the first session really does target working with students who may have a autism eligibility area, but the other 2 behavior trainings are really about how to support behavior in the classroom and in inclusive settings. So actually Hart Elementary was our first campus that had the training 1 today, and we haven't been able to connect and talk, but Mrs. Kraft, she's given a thumbs up that things went well. And again, the coaches that are already coming on the campus to support teachers are the coaches that are also doing the training. So again, it's a familiar face in dialogue. Our general education staff will also have access to the online platforms that special education staff already have access to. And then the third bullet, our parents, there's a section for our parents. And so in our upcoming parent newsletter, we're going to add that, the section where parents are able to access free additional resources through the grant program. So we're excited. We keep moving forward. We're going to look at the partnership in the autism grant. Lovejoy is in partnership with Sherman and Denison because TA does require that you're doing kind of some collaborative partnership. And there's a couple of model classrooms that Sherman has that we're going to look at taking some staff down to be able to, again, we're going to learn, they're a little further ahead because they've had the grant before. And so it's really nice to be able to collaborate with them and steal some ideas, and then we may be able to share some ideas with them. The dyslexia grant, we're continuing moving forward with structured literacy training. Some of that is face-to-face training, and some of it is, again, some of the job-embedded training. We've had our dyslexia staff helping with that, as well as our instructional coaches, so they've been very integral. Same thing with our early literacy intervention training. A board meeting, 2 board meetings previously when one of the teachers from Hart talked about Build and how that was really helping them as far as their intervention support. That's actually one of the programs that we've been able to purchase out of the dyslexia grant that supports literacy intervention. The grant also covered the cost for reading academies. Again, that's an unfunded mandate that districts are required to support. Definitely, it's great information in how we support elementary teacher knowledge around reading. So we were able to build in some of that cost with the dyslexia grant. And then Bridges is actually a new program from Scottish Rite. Just as a reminder, our district uses Take Flight for our dyslexia program. And sometimes we know students, there's not one program that's going to meet every student's need. And so Scottish Rite definitely has listened to what school districts have said, and this program is really geared for students who maybe have not been as successful in Take Flight, and then we're able to provide still a research high-quality program, but at a slower pace, with still some intentionality of the same work that Take Flight provides. So if a student started in Take Flight, they're not having to start over in a completely different program. There are some attributes from Take Flight that's in the previous program. So that's an upcoming training that we'll have for our special education staff. Continuing to, and I really should have titled this, I thought about it afterwards, it's really lunch, learn, and share opportunities, because there's a lot of really good things that our campus administrators are doing, and sometimes trying to have everybody around the table is really difficult because they have a whole campus to run, right? And so we're going to look at some ways to do some remote learning with our campus administrators, and some of it will be face-to-face, because we don't want to pull administrators off the campus, all APs and principals. We do like the remote piece to try to tap into that, so really everybody's able to hear the learning at the same time. And so here's some topics that we're going to start out with, and there's some opportunities too for some of the things that our campus administrators are doing that they may not have a chance to share. Here's a bright spot that's already happening on my campus. So we'll continue to shore up any areas around continuing to build their capacity in special education, but also learning and growing from them and one another. Questions?
Thank you. Sancy had started sharing this information about our special education guest educator updates, and I just wanted, we are keeping data, and here is some information. We know that special education teachers and special education substitutes, it's a hard to fill area, but you did do a rate increase of those that for us to provide some extra support and training. And as Sancy said, we have about 35 now that have completed that. So I wanted to show you kind of where the numbers were in September and October, and then when the training was at the end of October and in December. I hope to give you better data as we come in January. This is my appeal to everyone that's watching. We need you as a sub, and we would love to have you as a special education substitute or a guest educator if we could get you in there, but we are keeping that information. And you can see at the bottom how many we had filled, 8 out of 18 for 26 and a half days, and then 9 out of 18 for 18 and a half days in November, and then in December, 6 out of 18, covering 9 days there. So what also is occurring is we do have some vacancies in those paraprofessional aid positions that, we have substitutes in. So it is, it's something that we are working on. As far as some good news is we are also just trying to keep our guest educators engaged and let them know that we're here to support them in person security training. We had 52 attend that in-person training and receive some positive feedbacks. The special education training, 35. Just going out and doing that week of November recognitions, we were able to recognize 60 out of about 100 at the time. And of course, we'll have Stop the Bleed training February 16th, just something else that we can do to help support them when they are in our classrooms there. So we're making some good strides, but we're not done. We still have some work to do there. Questions for me?
Couple of things in student services. Just an update, our latest meeting for our Student Health Advisory Committee was just last week. It was a pretty light agenda. We talked about signs of suicide. If you have had students come through middle school and high school too, you will be familiar, I think, with the term signs of suicide. And it's really a program where our counselors go into the classroom, meet with our students, especially at the middle school level, and even early into high school. Kids start, having different stressors, and they have different feelings about how to respond to those stressors, and sometimes it may not be in the healthiest of ways. And so we want to talk our students through those things. and make sure that we provide support to them. And so really at the last meeting for the Shack, it was just how often should we provide the Signs of Suicide program to our students, and maybe in what years in the high school should we provide those as well. So that was discussed, and we'll provide some of the feedback to the principals at the middle school and the high school based on what our Shack committee members shared with us. You may have noticed in some of the principal communication that has come out since the Christmas holidays, this table and chart that's being included on a weekly basis now. One of the things that have come out of our attendance task force is really share the numbers, our attendance numbers with our community. What our current enrollment is, what our total absences are by campus, what our ADA is by campus, and then what, probably the most important, is what is our total loss of revenue due to absences year to date by campus. And so if you pull out from week to week, you can see how much those numbers change, either for the good or for the bad from week to week. And so you will see this come out each and every week. It's updated every Wednesday. I send it out to the principals. They include it in their most current principal communication for that particular week. And then finally, I wanted to share with you one thing that a lot of our community may not know about. We have a district behavioral threat assessment team. And this team is very, very important to what we do related to potential threats on our campuses. This team consists of, as you can see from the diagram, the Executive Director of Student Services, myself, Executive Director of Special Education, our Head of Safety and Security, Director of Student Support, and our district licensed social worker. And you can tell by the people who are involved, there's a lot of different lenses that we get to look at a student or a particular instance through based on the background of the people who are involved. And so what a threat assessment team does is it conducts, when a person makes a threat to commit a violent act or engages in a behavior that appears to be appears to threaten targeted violence, this team comes together and we discuss what kind of threat it is, how we're going to respond to this threat, how are we going to keep the students on our campus safe, and how are we going to keep the person safe who's actually making those threats. And then what should we do? What are our next action steps moving forward? And so really, what we want to decide as a threat assessment team is what type of threat is it? Is it a transient threat or is it a substantive threat? I can't say that word. Substantive threat. A transient threat is one that really, I don't know if you'd classify it as a threat, but it's really just everyday activities. It's, words, arguments between students. It could be a physical altercation, but really it's one that's resolved quickly. And after that immediate instant or that immediate action, it's really over with. It's not something that's carried out either throughout that day or even beyond the immediate incident. However, I'm not even going to try to say that word again because I can't say it. The next type of threat is a sustained threat, and it's intended to harm someone beyond the immediate incident. And it can just be simply words. And so if we have a student who makes a verbal threat to somebody, we really come around the table, and it's a pretty serious threat. The threat assessment team comes around the table and we talk about what should we do next? What kind of threat is it? And we go through some of the responses for a more serious threat. I should go back up. The transient threat, some of the responses may be just consequences at the campus level. It'd be consequences that the campus administration would hand out, it'd be notification to parents. And again, it's nothing really that carries on beyond that instance. Responses to the more major threat would be notifications to law enforcement, potentially notifying the threatening parent, the student's parents, and also notifying the threatened student's parents. There's obviously going to be disciplinary consequences. It could potentially be a referral to outside counseling services, and then implementation of a safety plan, which is in our emergency operations plan on how we respond to different incidents. And so really, again, it's to make sure that we mitigate any potential harm to the campus and to the student who's making that threat. Sometimes we forget about, we have to keep that student safe as well. And if that means consequences and that really curbs the behavior and turns the behavior around, or if it's potentially referring to outside counseling and getting professional help for that student. But it's always going to be working with that student's parents and making sure that we're in lockstep with that parent so they know what our intentions are. And we always want to keep the best interest of that student at heart and also the best interest of the campus as a whole in mind as well. So again, I think sometimes we forget that when threats happen on our campus, we may leave it up to our campus administration to make that really, really critical decision on how to move forward. But that's not it at all. We do have and also this team meets roughly about once a month, and we come together and talk about, we do a follow-up to all the threats that may have happened on campus to make sure that we don't just address the threat as it happens and we just move on and move forward and forget about it. We always want to make sure we do follow-ups, determine how that student's doing, and if there's any other additional steps that we need to take as a threat assessment team. Any questions?
The teacher level or then the counselor. So then they're threading that assessment up to this team. Because to me, that's the first line. So are they all well versed in this team to know that that is the?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And our next step is right now we have a district threat assessment team. Going forward, our goal is to have campus threat assessment teams. And so not only will we have it obviously at the district level, but we'll have kind of campus-based threat assessment teams so they can.
School structure where the counselor and the AP are alpha ordered. So they partner together because that's where you're in tune with a student and know this is happening. Oh yeah, I know this is happening too on a behavior and, two different tracks that may not have been communicating are now. And I love that new structure. I think that's critical.
And the other thing that we do is when we review it, we've seen all of the documents the campus has done and really even what consequence that they may have already provided. So it may just be a review and we've at least looked at it and it stays right there. So we have, they do handle it from that perspective. Some of them need some additional work from this team and some really just stay where the campus decisions had made.
I mean, I just think the more we can do these kinds of things, this is how you meet kids where they are and they don't get lost. I mean, these are all the stories you look back and go, oh, they knew this and they knew that, but none of it got pieced together. And so the sooner it can be pieced, the better we can support kids and be there to keep everybody safe.
The follow-up piece, everyone is assigned. So I may have 4 kids that they're on my radar to follow up. So as we come back as a team, now we do meet at least once a month, but sometimes we have to meet before if something comes up and it's something we're going to meet and make sure that we're providing support and guidance to the campus.
Yeah, I just appreciate this so much. I think it's critical.
Your presentation, Kevin. The attendance communication, I think that's great. People need to see the real dollars being impacted by that. You talked about the committee is there ongoing committee meetings with that, new efforts, the task force, and I guess work being done there? Can you share anything coming down still?
So the first meeting, we have one each quarter. The first one we had was really just an informative meeting about absences, how we take absences, the 3 different types of absences that we have. The second one, we looked at different trends. The one being a lot of absences on Fridays and a lot of absences the day before a holiday. And what are some of the things that we can do to curb those? Some of the recommendations were to rethink what types of assignments that we may have on Fridays. Don't avoid tests on Fridays just because it's a Friday. Don't avoid not giving homework over the weekend. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think that we can do just logistically to make Fridays just as important as a Monday or a Tuesday. And then, of course, one of the recommendations that came out of it was this type of communication. Going forward, we'll have one in the 3rd quarter, we'll have one in the 4th quarter to, again, continue to see where the trends are, how to respond to those, and then any new ideas that we want to recommend to the campus administration on how to improve attendance.
I'm not competitive at all, but I wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Zambezi and his team. High school is always last, and they are not last. So
Well,
great job, whatever you are doing. It's a tough crowd.
Dr. Zambezi hasn't brought that up.
We've all heard about that.
Well, and my kids happen to be there too, so you know, I just had to. Everyone's within like hundreds of points, right? It's close, and everyone's above the budgeted goal. But let's
Everybody's
keep
above
it
the
going.
budget. That's right.
Thank you very much for those updates. And with that, Ms. Cordell, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Mr. Owens said some very kind things earlier, and I just want to emphasize that when you're a leader, you absolutely know that it's the team, and we are remarkably blessed with every member of the Lovejoy team and the way they work on behalf of our students. I am humbled every day by our teachers and our staff. You can look in the back of the room. We've got remarkable, dedicated leaders that are making all of these things happen for our kids, and we are so fortunate. And parents as well. We have the best staff and parents and students of anywhere, and that's part of our special formula that makes Lovejoy ISD uniquely special. So wanted to make sure that I emphasize that it's very much all of us working together on behalf of our kids. And then wanted to celebrate the Addams Family musical. They actually caused a big problem this morning in our leadership meeting because we spent 20 minutes just talking. We check in and we share something personal and professional with each other. And we went around and we just kept getting distracted because everybody kept bringing up the musical and how remarkable it was. And Miss Brewster and our crew and our cast have so much to be proud of. It was really neat to watch our community come out and enjoy that, watch the younger students wait for autographs, and the cast was absolutely unbelievable. There wasn't one standout or two standouts. I mean, they are all remarkable. So it was wonderful to see. And then, of course, want to thank all the parents that support that kind of program, and the whole community got to see the result of that.
Awesome. Thank you for the update, Ms. Cordell. And item 25 is public comment related to non-agenda items.
This evening, we have 3 public comments related to non-agenda items. First up is Ms. Rebecca Hempkins. So, Mr. Owens, if you want to read our instructions, and then we can have her present.
Just as a quick reminder, those that are speaking came about 15 minutes before the meeting, sat here the whole time, and filled out a card for us to be able to do that. You have 3 minutes to speak. As a reminder, if you have a specific grievance with an employee or a student, we encourage you to utilize and adhere to our procedures and policies. Board policies, BGBA local, FNG local, and GF local, or applicable grievance processes. Each grievance procedure allows for an individual to redress grievances with the Board of Trustees. All relevant procedures are available online at lovejoyisd.net. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes to address this. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated in the meeting. If after the provision of a single warning, disruptive behavior continues.
I'm not going to be disruptive.
I know you won't, Ms. Rebecca. The disruptive individual may be escorted out of the meeting by district officials and/or law enforcement. It's a criminal offense for a person with intent to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting to substantially obstruct or interfere with the ordinary conduct of a meeting by physical action or verbal utterance. None of that intended directly to you, Ms. Hempkins, but as I always do, preparing the playing field.
Okay. Well, my name is Rebecca Hempkins, and my family, my husband and kids and I have been in the district for 16 years. And so, you know, we've kind of grown up in the district. I have a daughter who's a freshman in high school, a son who's a junior in high school, and he is in the special ed life skills program, and that's why I'm here tonight. In all the years, I have seen a lot of change in the district. I have watched, you know, things haven't always been rosy. There's always struggles, but I have never felt the need to address the board. But now is the time. I see a trend in the decline of the SPED department, specifically at the secondary level. That's where I am, so that's what I'll speak to. and at the high school level. And when I say a trend, this seems to be several years. I know there are staffing issues across the board, but at the special education and life skills level, it is ongoing. In the last 2.5 years, Sullivan has had 5 lead teachers. And honestly, a revolving door of aides and paraprofessionals. Worse than that, last year we had 5 students in that program. We had 2 lead teachers and several dedicated paras. This year we've doubled that number of students with 1 lead teacher and 2 paras. A lot of people support the program, wear many hats, and what I'm seeing is they're spread too thin. They are stressed beyond a healthy level and beyond a level that can be sustained. And that, I feel like, is why we keep losing these people. They are required to meet legal requirements that are spelled out in an IEP, which is individualized for all of these different students. And there's simply not enough of them to meet those needs. That is kind of a broad brush stroke of where I have concerns, but I want to drill down even further to the vocational program. In the past, that program was robust. We had many community partners. Our students were able to go out into the community, into the workforce, gain training, gain job skills, work with the community, work with employers, maybe 5 or 6 different community partners where they could try a variety.
Ms. Hempkins, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for you tonight. Your 3 minutes is up, and so we're going to move on
Okay.
to the next public comment, which is Ms. Leslie Jackson, also regarding special education at the high school.
Hello, my name is Leslie Jackson. My husband, Tim Jackson, and I have been residents in Fairview since 2006. Both of our children have gone to Lovejoy from preschool, PPCD, and kindergarten through graduation. Our special needs son, Reagan, is a senior this year. When we moved to this district 17 years ago, Lovejoy was a sought-out district, especially for special education. Unfortunately, that is not the case any longer. Sadly, we've seen many changes over the years that have negatively impacted our children. We've had some good experiences at Lovejoy, and we've also had some bad experiences with Lovejoy special education staff. We are grateful for the Lovejoy community accepting Reagan, especially the students and coaches. Reagan is a student that runs through the tunnel of the football games with the players. Reagan is Lovejoy's number one fan at most sporting events. The last 4 years have been extremely frustrating with us, with staff turnovers and decisions not in the best interest of the special education students. Reagan has had 6 life skills students in his 4 years while he's been at the high school. All of his former teachers have chosen to leave the district and are now teaching in other districts in this area. This is not part of the current teacher shortage problem that has been happening for this problem has been happening for many years, well before the pandemic. How can you expect this vulnerable student population to be successful with almost a completely new staff every year? A serious issue that occurred this year has been staff reduction in the life skills class at the high school. We've had twice the number of special education students at the high school as last year, yet staffing has been reduced. Also, there was only 1 classroom this year versus 2 last year. How can this even be safe? It's not, and it's very disruptive for the students. I've seen a student elope out of the classroom door to the front parking lot, amongst other concerning incidents. None of this is the fault of the current life skills staff, as they are doing the best they can with 10 students. In addition to the life skills teacher turnover, Lovejoy has also lost their transition and vocation coordinator and vocation teacher for this school year, and both BCBAs left in December. Most staff in special education wear many hats. Instead of replacing these positions, they were combined with other special education staff positions. We have a great teacher in the life skills class at the high school this year, but he is completely overwhelmed. Imagine having 10 special education students on your caseload. That's 10 ARDs, 10 sets of goals with progress reports, This teacher had to take a day off last fall just to catch up on paperwork. I know the independent evaluation done last year assessed adequate staffing in the life skills class at the high school. Last year it was adequate with the staff-student ratio, but this year it is not. So why reduce the staff down to one teacher and not increase the number of paraprofessionals? As a parent of a student who has difficulties communicating his needs, fears, or anxiety, this situation has been very challenging. If you want to retain good teachers, you
Ms.
need to support
Jackson,
them in
Ms.
life
Jackson,
skills.
unfortunately, that's all the time we have for you. We're going to move on to the next and last public comment of the night, and that's Ms. Christy Jackson, also regarding special education at our high school level.
Hi, my name is Christy Jackson, and I'm representing Chad and my son Matthias tonight. We have been Lovejoy residents for the last 6 years. My son was actually going to a private school in Dallas. We were commuting to Dallas to go to school. We chose to take a leap into the district, and we've had good times, but we've had more regrets. A little bit about me. I'm a product of public school. My husband is too. I did graduate from Baylor. I taught school for 12 years. 3 of those were as a professional mentor to student teachers coming in. So I co-taught in my classroom with University of North Texas. So I've been on the teacher side of things. We have 4 kids, from average to super highly achievers to a son who cannot read or write. So I'm here on behalf of him to advocate for him in a way that he cannot do. We've considered each of our kids special with needs. It was just glorious to see all the things that our district is doing for all the kids. I would ask why. I think they've laid out some of the things. We have 1 teacher for 10 kids in high school. We have a very bleak future with the vocational aspect of it. And they're here through the age of 21. What a great opportunity for this district to really be the premier. We're premier in so many other things, but to really be premier with the kids who are most marginalized, who are the most underserved, and who would be considered the least of these. What are we doing for them? And so it grieves me greatly, and I just, if you didn't know this before, I exhort you and challenge you to really add a teacher right now. We need 1 more teacher in that classroom right now. We only have 2 aides. The impact of an aide leaving, our son's been asking for the aide that left in December every day. He doesn't know where he went, what happened, but the turnover has been this way for the last 6 years. I can't even count up the number of teachers we've had. And this isn't a district that is to be very strong. So I'm just laying that out. We need 1 teacher right now. That's my ask for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's all the public comments we have for the night.
Thank you. All right, we would be adjourned.